Moonshine is an American Prohibition-era tabletop RPG designed by Ben Goldman. It's set in the late 1920s in any big city in the US during the height of organized crime, government corruption, and social upheaval. You can play as a cop, a gangster, or everyday citizen, and you're meant to tell any kind of story that might be told in that particular setting, except for one little extra thing. Some people have minor psychic abilities, but they have to keep them hidden from federal agents who systematically eliminate anyone displaying such powers. In this video, I want to walk you through the 76-page preview PDF for this game, which covers the dice mechanics, powers, and combat, and then share with you what I like so far about this game and what I'm hoping to see most in the final version. I think the best place to start here is where the creator drew his inspiration from. I'm always a fan of media touchstones since they can really get a GM and players into the right visual space more than anything. Asking players to watch entire TV series before playing a game might be a bit too much, but watching just one of these movies might be enough to really solidify a look and feel for a session of this game. So this is what by most measures would be considered a rules light game. The idea is that your character is really just composed of 4 core stats and 3 secondary point pools. Well, and 48 listed skills, and these skills are all rated from 0 to 4 dots. You'll earn anywhere from 2 to 5 experience points per session, and you use those points to upgrade each of these aspects of your character. Notice that they get more expensive as you progress. These skills are actually sorted by their associated core attribute, so if you take a look at the column for grit, for example, these are your basic grit skills, resilience being one that will reduce incoming damage for any attack that you receive. And then you have several categories of weapon skills under this attribute. Note that blackjacks can mean things like clubs, bats, and pipes as well. And it has its own leveling scheme, so as you level up your blackjack skill, you will unlock a damage bonus, and then a unique trait or ability with that weapon, and then another damage bonus that will stack with the first one. If we hop over to the rifle skill under the focus attribute, notice this different special feature that you can unlock at 3 dots. Each of these unique features does tend to make the 12 categories of weapons seem different and interesting, but you do need to buy your way to those features using XP. Finally, there are skills categorized as specialties under each core attribute, and each of these have a unique mechanic associated with them, which is to say, the dots on your character sheet will all have different significance. For example, if you have 3 dots in the specialty of presence, then anytime you meet someone for the first time, you will roll your empathy or intimidate skill, and on a 15 or higher, you can actually choose the disposition that person will have towards you out of all of these options. If you have 4 dots in sniper, then all of your ranged weapons will have double their normal range and +8 to your weapon roll for all ranged attacks. There is one more set of skills actually, and that is your psychic abilities. These are not actually associated with any core attribute, and they're composed of 5 categories of powers. Just like with the weapons and specialties, each set of dots will have their own special significance. With read minds, for example, you can potentially do anything from merely read auras for 10 seconds, all the way up to entering the mind of your target and knowing everything that they know. I do want to talk about that a little bit later in the video. Finally, there's standing, which is a set of 3 different social ratings for your character. You can't actually buy dots in these with XP. Instead, the GM will award dots of standing through the course of gameplay. Alright, so how do the dice actually work? If you're rolling on a skill, weapon, or psychic ability, you will first look to the number of dots that you have. If you have no dots, then you roll 1d12 and add your relevant attribute. If you have 1 dot, you roll 3d12 and remove the highest die, and then add the associated attribute. If you have 2 dots, you roll 3d12 and remove the middle die, and then add the attribute. 3 dots means you roll 3d12 and remove the lowest die plus attribute, and 4 dots means that you roll 3d12 and add them all up with your attribute, no dice removed. The idea is to shoot for a higher sum, one that will equal or exceed a difficulty number set by the GM. In the case of opposed rolls, you're shooting for a sum that is higher than the other character's rolls, with ties going to the instigator of the roll. I really like the elegant simplicity of the base dice mechanics of this game, but I will say that combat does get a little sticky. There's just a lot of steps. Let me show you what I mean. In the example provided, we've got Mickey attacking Leonard with a baseball bat. The bat is a blackjack category weapon, so Mickey rolls his skill in blackjacks, which is 2 dots, and adds his rating in grit. With 2 dots, you roll 3d12 and drop the middle die and add everything else up. The total here is 20. There's a replenishable point pool called energy, which is used to boost rolls and use psychic powers. In this case, Mickey uses 1 energy point to boost that roll result up by 3 to a total of 23. Now Leonard rolls his deflect skill. He has 1 dot in that skill, which means he rolls 3d12 and drops the highest die, and then adds his associated attribute for deflect, which is charm. He has a 3 in charm, so his total is 14. The attack sum of 23 is greater than 14, so it's a hit. To calculate damage, you look at the blackjack page. Blackjacks carry 2 damage plus dots of force skill. Mickey has 2 dots of force, so that's 4 damage, but he gets plus 2 damage from that second dot in blackjacks that he has, so the total damage is 6. Now, Leonard will roll resistance. 2 dots in resistance plus an underlying rating of 3 in grit means 10 for this roll. Since he attempted to deflect, he actually gets plus 2 for each dot, which results in a 12. But he also spends an energy point to bump that result up to a 15. Then when you look up the resilience table, a 15 says the damage is reduced by 2, so the total damage for that attack is 4. Additionally, there are some suggested combat modifiers that will add or remove 5 to 10 points on a roll, and there are a few more combat-related mechanics here, but it doesn't get lost in the weeds. So admittedly, I don't have much more to show you at the moment. I can report that this game does have a fully interactive character sheet on Roll20, and the full game will include a guide to Chicago full of locations and NPCs, and 2 one-shot mysteries. I guess if I had to make a wish list for what this game would also include, it would be the following. A GM section that includes a bunch of adventure hooks and scenario seeds for each of the story types listed in the preview document. Those story types being Gumshoe, Underworld, Fuzz, and Slice of Life. Brief guidance on how to structure and run each of these story types. An expansive city guide. I'm not sure how detailed the Chicago guide will be, but I'd love to see a bunch of organizations and procedures and customs for each respective organization. Possible expansion of the psychic abilities and other advanced powers. This is a tricky one because part of the charm of this game is the fact that psychic powers are rare, secretive, and not superpowered for the most part. But on the other hand, you can only do so much with 5 psychic powers. Psychic organizations would be nice to see, as they are a logical extension of a setting that contains people with psychic powers. Surely there is at least one secret order of psychics kicking around in the big city. Standing mechanics could also include a heat category for criminals who garner the attention of law enforcement, and an expanded bibliography for further research, or at least a glossary that gives you 1920s slang, as well as period-appropriate names, fashion, and technology. I think my main concern with the game so far is the nature of combat being maybe a bridge too far in terms of damage resistance. An initial roll to attack and then to calculate damage and then to deflect seems reasonable, but then another roll for resilience just feels like a slight overextension to me personally. But this game overall is really intriguing to me. I really appreciate the 3d12 roll. It's unique, and I like how the dots for each of the skills for the weapons, specialties, and psychic abilities have special significance. The dots don't just mean added points or added dice to a dice pool. Each skill is unique and has its own set of features. I think in the end, what the GM is going to have to contend with the most is not finding enemies to throw at players that are the right amount of challenge, but rather developing a narrative environment that doesn't get completely obliterated by these psychic powers. Here's what I mean. Let's take a look at the most powerful iterations of medium, reading minds, suggestion, and psychometry. Now, put yourself in the shoes of the GM trying to develop a mystery for the players to solve, or a major NPC that they're trying to defeat, but your players have some of these powers. It's hard to say from just the preview document alone, but I do think this game could deliver solidly on a very specific genre experience. I think the most immediate comparison, when you look at the time period and location and the character sheet with the big list of skills, would be that of Call of Cthulhu, which takes place around the same time and place and has a big honking list of skills, but the fact is this is a much simpler game mechanically, and the setting is much closer to actual history. There are no eldritch entities, no tentacly monsters or aliens or anything like that. Instead, there is just the touch of the supernatural, those psychic powers that come up in a relatively restrained manner. That makes for a completely different experience from Call of Cthulhu. It's more nuanced, historical pulp fiction. At least there's the potential for it. I'd love to know your thoughts on this game so far. Leave your comments down below and let me know what you'd like to see in the final version of this game as well. I've left a link to where you can back this game and get more information on it. Thanks as always for watching. I'll see ya.